Welcome back to Galton Valley Farm to School Cooking at Home. My name is Zoe and I'm the family cooking instructor for our organization. Today we're going to make a creamy chickpea salad, and as the name would suggest, this features our Harvest of the Month product, which if you remember from last week, that's chickpeas. So we're going to add a little bit of protein into our salad as well as some nutrients like fiber and iron. This is a great recipe to make with your kids. We're going to be practicing following instructions, math, reading, all of that good stuff. So before we get started, and especially before we hand over some knives to our kids, we're going to go over some knife skills. So I'm going to show you guys the basic knife skills that we teach in our cooking classes. And I'll read through all of them and then I'll show you on a lemon what all of those mean. So this poster might look familiar to some of you, but it's our knife skills poster. So our first rule is elbow room, and that means, so we're sitting or standing where we're going to be cooking, and if you go like this, kind of like a chicken, and you are hitting somebody next to you, that means that you don't have enough room to be using a knife. You need a lot of room, so you can ask your friends or your family members to give you a little bit of space. Our second rule is claw and saw. And that means that with your non-dominant hand, so I'm right-handed, so I would use the knife in my right hand, and so I'm going to hold the things that we're cooking, or that we're cutting, with my left hand. And so what that means is that with my left hand, I'm going to make a claw, kind of like a bear claw, and I'm going to hold the thing that I'm cutting with that hand. And if you'll notice, that means that when I use this knife, I don't know if you can see, that means it's protecting my fingertips. So it gives it a little bit of a guard against the knife. And to go along with that is saw. So these are the knives that we use for our classes. They're sharp, you know, they'll get the job done, but they're also really good for little hands. So these are the ones that we use. And so to cut through bigger things like lemons and onions and things like that, it's easier to do a sawing motion. So we got the claw, and then we're going to saw through our lemon. And the added bonus with these knives is that they come with a protective sheath. So when you're not using it, you can put that sheet back on, and then you can't cut yourself. Our next rule is low and slow. And then the one after that is eyes on the prize, so I'll do that at the same time. So low and slow, I kind of demonstrated it before. You slowly cut our item. Our last rule is eyes on the prize, so that means when you're cutting, as it would suggest, your eyes are on the thing that you're cutting. You're not talking to your friends, you're not looking around when you have a knife in your hands. Your eyes are on your hands and the things that you're cutting. Now we know how to use our knives safely, so we're going to get started. This is a salad, so it has two main components: salad, the basic salad, and then the salad dressing. So we're going to do the components for the salad first. So the first thing that we're going to do, as the name of the recipe would suggest, one of the main ingredients is a carrot. As we go through this recipe, there are a couple of things that I don't have on hand in my house, and I also wasn't able to find them in the grocery store. So I'll go through a couple of substitution recommendations for you. So the first one that we're doing, I did have, was carrots. And I like to use rainbow carrots, especially in raw salads, just because they add a really fun color. I like to try and make things as rainbowy as I possibly can. Then I know I'm getting all of the vitamins and minerals that my body needs. So we've done that, and we're actually going to shred this carrot, but first we need to cut the ends off. So we're going to claw and saw our ends off. So we're going to use a grater, just a regular old grater, and you can use whatever size you want. I either like to do kind of the medium small one or the medium one. Depends on your audience. So a couple of different ways I like to do this, especially if you're working with smaller kids. If you turn your grater sideways and just do it like that, so they can hold on, or you can hold on to the grater with your non-dominant hand, and then you just grab it like you mean it, and then just grate it. And then it's really easy because then everything is collected in this grater, and then you can just tap it out into your bowl. And the next ingredient are chickpeas. And if you didn't already know, chickpeas have two names. So on this recipe that I have garbanzo beans. They're all the same thing, they just have two different names. So these are chickpeas that I made from their dry form, just to save an aluminum can in the garbage and save a little bit of money. So I spent the same amount of money on dry chickpeas as I would on 1 can of chickpeas, and that yielded about 4 times as many chickpeas by the dry form. So just a little bit of a cost-effective tip there. And then I froze them, and they keep for, I think they're about 3 months old now, and they're still just fine. So I'm going to do a 1/2 cup of chickpeas. Pretty easy. And all of the measuring, if you have really small kids, measuring is a really great way to incorporate them into the recipes. Our next ingredient are raisins. I don't have any raisins, so I am going to use the rest of our cranberries here. We're going to do about 1/8 of a cup. So I only have a 1/4 cup, so we'll do half of that. There's some math for you. So we're going to do about 1/8 of a cup of cranberries. And the same amount of slivered almonds. Now, if you guys have a nut allergy in your house, completely fine. You still want to have something a little bit crunchy in there. So if you can do sunflower seeds, and then we've also done pumpkin seeds in the past, and those have been really tasty. So if you want to add a little bit of extra zing in there, you can toast them ahead of time, so they're just a little bit smoky and a little bit more crispy. And then the other substitution that I didn't have was parsley. And this is actually something I like to play around with a lot with this recipe, are different herbs. Parsley is really good, and then I've also done basil and cilantro, which are really nice fresh herbs. But I don't have any of those, and since it's a little bit cold outside, I'm going for a little bit earthier and wintry herb. And if you don't know, this is thyme. So this is what it looks like in its whole and fresh form. And this one is really nice too because you don't really need to cut it. You can just strip the leaves. I just use my fingers and kind of pull at it. You can strip the leaves and just put them right in there. We like to use something fresh just to add a little bit of green and a little bit of earthiness to our recipes. We won't do too much thyme. It's a very potent herb, so we won't do the full 1/4 cup that the recipe calls for. And then we have, so that's all of our salad ingredients. And as I mentioned, there are only 2 of us, so this is about 2 servings for us. The full recipe that I'll post will be 4 servings, so it'll be a little bit more in there. Okay, so now we're going to do the dressing, and I like to do my dressing in a liquid measuring cup. It just makes it easier for doing dishes, and again, I just like to see all of the ingredients. So the first thing we're going to do is cut this garlic clove. So with our knife, you have 1 garlic clove, so we want to cut the ends off, just like that. And then the paper should come right off. And you can chop this with your knives, or you can just use a garlic press, or you can use the mincing section of your grater. But since we're only doing 1 garlic clove, I will just use our knife here. We're just going to chop it as much as we can. This is where a slightly bigger knife comes in handy, but it can be done with these little knives. And you want to mince this about as much as you can get it. I don't know about you guys, but I don't really like crunching into a big bite of garlic, so I like to get my garlic as finely chopped as I can. Okay, and then we're just going to put it right in the liquid measuring bowl, like such. We'll put our knife back on because we're done chopping, I believe. And then we have the juice of half a lemon, so I'm going to use that lemon that we already cut. And I'll just squeeze it right in there. I like to do it over my hand so I can catch any of the seeds that might get in there. Just like such. And garlic clove, and then we're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of, 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt and pepper. Do about half of that. half of this, salt and pepper, and then our last little bit is Greek yogurt. Normally I like to use Kalispell creamery yogurt, but last time we went to the grocery store they didn't have that, so we're going to use some Greek Gods. That's another one of my favorite kinds of Greek yogurt. And we're going to do 1 tablespoon. So I like to do an acid, something sweet usually, and a little bit of something creamy in my basic dressing recipes. This one particularly, I don't like to add anything sweet because these purple carrots are really sweet, so that's enough. But if you wanted to add a little bit of honey, you definitely could. And then we just whisk it together. And then last we're gonna add some olive oil. So we'll probably do between 1 and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. We'll see how it looks. I think that's probably good. Mix that up. Perfect. And then we have our salad, so we're just going to pour it over. And this makes kind of like it kind of reminds me of like coleslaw dressing. It's a little bit creamy. So we're going to pour it over our salad. Just like such. And then we'll mix it up with our fork. Okay, and there we have it. So we have our creamy carrot and chickpea salad. It's very tasty. Alright, and that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Join us next week. I'm going to show you guys how to make vegetable stock from scratch.